This is a public service message by the Ohio Department of Higher Education, the Ohio Cyber Range Institute, and the University of Dayton Center for Cybersecurity and Data Intelligence. These days, service-oriented businesses often offer free Wi-Fi for their patrons. It doesn't cost them much, makes the customer's wait seem shorter, and may even increase the average user's length of stay. Customers connect to the network with the username and password that is typically posted prominently for their convenience. This is a nice value add for customers and one that may attract new business, particularly when people are traveling or looking for a place to work. Unfortunately, cybercriminals never miss a trick. They know that people often use free Wi-Fi connections while they wait. This is an issue because it turns out that making the Wi-Fi accessible to everyone also means that the network is not particularly secure, even as compared to many home networks. Anyone connecting to a network that is not secure may find they are vulnerable to a type of attack that resembles eavesdropping. When people connect with a less than secure network, they are vulnerable to something cybersecurity professionals call a man-in-the-middle attack. So instead of listening in to a conversation, the cybercriminals intercept the Wi-Fi traffic being sent from a computer to the access point provided by the business. Of course, if a username or password or credit card information is sent or received, the hacker can steal that information. The name is fairly explanatory as to how the attack is executed. The bad guy first goes to some place where there's likely to be a lot of not very secure Wi-Fi traffic. Sometimes hackers compromise the Wi-Fi router by identifying unpatched vulnerabilities. In other cases, the hackers use a portable device that tricks computers into believing that they are connecting with the access point provided by the business. The problem is, you can't tell when it's happening. There is a delay, but it is so small that you would never notice it is taking longer to send and receive messages over the network. Bad guys can also spoof or generate fake internet addresses. You think you and your computer are communicating directly with an access point in a fast food restaurant when you're really connecting with a small box sitting on a table near you. That then redirects the messaging to the legitimate access point. Cybercriminals are also known to target emails between banks and their customers, altering them to send instructions to customers that might get them to send login credentials or payment card information. Bad actors can also try to trick you into attaching to less secure sites. HTTPS is the secure version of Hypertext Transfer Protocol, which is how your browser accesses internet sites. Browsing using HTTPS means the data between your browser and the site you are on is encrypted during transmission. Pretty much any site that involves sensitive data these days, indeed most sites in general, are HTTPS enabled. However, the bad guys will try to get you away from the secure sites by using phony links sent to you to try to get you to go to an equivalent HTTP site, perhaps one they control, which isn't as secure, so they can read your data. In addition to attacking the legitimate router at your coffee shop, bad guys can also simply set up their own network router and use that to log everything that any user sends or receives through it. Since most people don't pay a lot of attention to the name on the access point they're attaching to, they may well attach to the cybercriminal's access point, where data can be copied, stored, and then sent along to wherever it was going in the first place. Again, any delay to do all this is incredibly short, so the victim never suspects their data has been intercepted. The good news is that there are ways to beat this kind of attack, but it takes a bit of diligence and possibly a small investment. First, let's revisit secure browsing. One thing here is that you should type the HTTPS address in yourself rather than trusting any link in an email or on a website. That way you know you're going to the HTTPS site you're seeking. If you look and the site doesn't have HTTPS, you may have been redirected, and you can then put in the correct address. Next, you may wish to think about getting a VPN or virtual private network, which encrypts any data sent back and forth on the network, whether it is from your browser or not. Encryption means that if bad guys intercept your data, it's gobbledygook to them. This does have a small cost, however. We mentioned this in another video in our series, but it never hurts to be vigilant to phishing emails, which a bad person might use to convince you that they're a legitimate contact, for example, a representative from your bank. Next, it's clear that if the bad guys are putting in their own router, it would be a good idea to look carefully at the instructions for attaching to the legitimate router, which should protect you from attaching to the cybercriminal's router. Finally, it's never a bad idea to keep your antivirus programs and other computer software up to date. That way, if you're the victim of a man-in-the-middle attack, you are better protected against malware being installed on your computer, or against other vulnerabilities. While our devices can provide a great deal of convenience for our lives, they can also be a double-edged sword. By being cyber-mindful and taking appropriate precautions, you can enjoy these conveniences while staying safe. A public service message from the Ohio Department of Higher Education, the Ohio Cyber Range Institute, and the University of Dayton Center for Cybersecurity and Data Intelligence.